All right, you want to buy a home, your first home, and you're trying to figure out how much money do you need. I'm talking about that right now, and also 5 mistakes that you need to avoid. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Moki here. I'm a realtor in Northern Virginia. Welcome to the channel. You've been here before, so glad to have you back. I've been gone for a while. I know, I'm sorry guys, but I am back. If it's your first time, welcome. We are glad to have you here. Remind you, your phone is your friend, so don't be shy. Hit your boy up. You got my phone number. Everything is in the description. You can find my link tree, and you can get a hold of me however is most convenient to you. So today we're talking about how much money do you really need to buy your first home. And this is something that's really important right now, the subject of how much is anything with inflation, with the rising gas prices, with the housing market going all crazy, with interest rates going up, going down, so volatile. The subject of money and how much things cost is really, really prevalent right now. So I'm going to talk about some of the moving pieces to what it takes to buy your first home in terms of how much money do you need, how much money do you need to bring, and then we'll talk about later at the end of the video, we'll talk about the 5 mistakes that you need to avoid. So the number one thing that people got to realize when they're buying their first home is that you do not have to bring all the money that you need to close on the house. The most common example of that is financing. Down payment on the one side and a loan on the other side. That is a combination of your money and a bank or a lender's money to actually buy the house. And other ways that you can use other people's money, or as the internet loves to call it, OPM, is by using assistance programs, whether it's a down payment assistance, whether it's a grant program, whether it's a lender who has a promotion of some kind about, hey, if you get a loan now in the next 30 days, we'll give you X amount of dollars for your closing costs. Also, just finance less. Let's say if you're a VA loan or a USGA loan where you have to bring you can bring as little as 0% down. That is saying that you can have a 100% financed property for the first time. So there are a ton of different options that you can have where there's the amount of money that is required to transfer the ownership, and then there's the fact that you don't have to bring all of that money. And now in 2022 and getting into 2023, one way of utilizing other people's money that's very different from the last 2 to 3 years is seller assistance, which means that not only can you request for a seller to provide some form of a credit towards your closing. So the question becomes, how much money do you need? So in terms of actual numbers, it's gonna vary based on the price of the home, the amount of financing you're gonna be bringing, and a whole bunch of the closing costs and inspections and so on and so forth. But we can use percentages to get an idea or a gist of like a pie chart, and then we can segment it in different percentages, which you can use then you can plug and place different numbers in to get the numbers that really work for you. So let's say this whole pie, let's say you got this round old pie, and that is the amount of money that's required to buy the house, and you've got a sliver for the down payment. Now, depending on the loan type, depends on how much money is required for you to bring on the down payment. So if you're doing something like a USGA loan or a VA loan, that number can be 100% financed. You don't have to bring any money for the down payment side. But if you're doing a conventional loan, you can bring as little as 3% down, and then as much as you want. I've known people that put 50% down on a home. You can the upward number is really at your choosing, and so 3% is right about the minimum. And so you would then plug that into an equation. And so let's say you want to buy a house for $500,000. So in the best case scenario, you would have $15,000 that's required to finance a $500,000 house at a 3% conventional loan. Now, the other piece that most people don't get to until they actually start looking at homes and they're caught by surprise, especially when it's your first home, is the closing costs. Now, closing costs range between 3 to 5 or even 7% of the sales price. So if we're looking at a $500,000 house, and we've got, let's assume a 4% of the sales price, just to be conservative in case you need a little bit extra money for whether it's an appraisal or whatever. You've got your $15,000 for your down payment, and then for the 4%, you've got another 20 grand for your closing costs. Now there's one conversation, which is how much money do you need to bring, and then there's another conversation about what do you qualify for. Now this is what a lender's gonna have to go deep dive into your income, your assets, your credit, so on and so forth, to figure out, what can you qualify for. Let's say a $500,000 house at a different interest rate. That's something that a lender is gonna have to do. But for this gives you a round number or a target for whatever money you wanna start saving. So let's say you've got $35,000 to close. Now what you could do is you could get a grant for like a first-time home buyer assistance. You could get a grant from a lender. They typically have different promotions, especially now with the interest rates really high. This is the thing that's happening, is that the interest rates are really high, and so it's dissuading buyers from getting in the market. But one of the things they're doing is that they're offering more grants, more promotions to entice buyers to get in the market. So what you could do is you could utilize some of the grants from different lenders. Another thing you do is then you could use seller credits to bring down some of that cost for closing costs. For example, you could say one tactic that was pretty typical was splitting the cost, splitting your closing costs 50-50. So let's say you're 20,000, let's assume that the percentages work out evenly, where they take 1.5% of the closing costs. That's 10 grand, which now you're only required to bring 25,000. So that's one thing you do. The best way you can help a seller is actually just buy their house. Okay, so you're already helping them, right? You're saying, hey, I want to buy your house, and then in return, just help with the closing costs here. It's a little $25,000. It's not going to break them on their net sheet. They're still going to walk away with a whole bunch of money that they want. Now, hear me out. What you're really going to need to do is talk to a lender to get accurate numbers. Here, this is the internet. What you want to do is, this is giving you a rough idea of something to aim for. If you're going to be buying your first home and you're watching this video today, you're probably 6 months, a year away from actually purchasing a home. So this gives you a target that you can aim for, and then gives you some numbers or some information that you can now talk to a lender, or you can talk to me. You got my information down below. Hit me up. We'll get into more details about what you want to do and how you can get it done. So that's what you want to do, is you want to get more into the details about not only, remember what I talked about a little earlier, there's the money you need to bring, and then there's also what you qualify for. This is what you want to, this right here is going to determine a lot about this right here. So really, to really summarize it up, the main things are your down payment and your closing costs, and then there's any other expenses that you would incur in just the moving process. Your movers, your utilities, all those different things. But you're looking at about, let's say, ideal scenario, with the minimum that you would bring for a conventional loan. Let's say we really do want to say that you want to prepare for some kind of financing, and then if you don't have to finance anything, then great. But really preparing for some kind of financing, you're at 3% for a conventional loan, and then an additional 3 to 5% for your closing costs. Closing costs are not going to get that much higher, especially with the market cooling down. So let's say 3 or 5%. So in total, let's say you want to buy a $500,000 house, like I mentioned at the beginning. If you have to bring all of the money yourself, then you would be bringing about $35,000 with a 3% $15,000, and let's say a 4% of the sales price for closing costs, which is about $20,000. So you can use that equation. Just change the sales price and the numbers will change. But in terms of how much of the portion that you're responsible for, how much of that you personally need to bring to the table, can change. You can utilize more of the bank's money for grants, or you can utilize a seller. Don't discount the money that you can get from the people around you. We just don't get because we don't ask. So that's the money side.